Picture the moment. You've played it out in your head 100 times. You open the app, you check the number, and there it is. $500,000. $500,000. Your net worth sitting there on a screen, looking exactly like the finish line you've been running toward for years. And in this version, the one you've rehearsed, something happens to you in that moment. You feel different. You stand differently. You walk back into your life and everything has this quiet, permanent weight to it, like you finally made it to the other side of something. That's the version most people are running toward. Here's what actually happens. You check the number. You feel a pulse of something. Real. Satisfaction? Maybe a little disbelief? You screenshot it. Maybe you text one person who would understand. And then, within about 48 hours, you go back to your life. The same commute, the same grocery store, the same low-grade background noise of everything that still isn't figured out. The transformation you ordered never shows up at the door. And the strangest part isn't that it feels underwhelming. The strangest part is that you feel almost embarrassed to admit that, because you're supposed to be grateful. You're supposed to feel like you won. And you do, kind of, but not the way you imagined, not even close. My name is Nick, and I've spent more time than I'd like to admit trying to understand why the milestones that are supposed to change everything often feel like the quietest moments in the whole journey. If you've ever worked hard toward a number and wondered whether the feeling you're chasing actually exists on the other side of it, hit subscribe. Because today we're going inside the specific psychology of why $500,000, a genuinely significant, legitimately life-altering number, almost never feels the way you imagined it would. And more importantly, what it actually does give you that's worth every dollar of the grind to get there. I'll warn you up front, there's an uncomfortable truth buried in the middle of this video that most people in the personal finance space won't say directly. We'll get there. But we have to start with the fantasy, because the fantasy is doing a lot of work here that nobody has properly audited. Let me introduce you to two people. Maya has been building toward $500,000 for 11 years. She started with nothing, paid off debt first, then automated her investments and refused to lifestyle inflate every time she got a raise. She has a spreadsheet. She checks it on Sunday evenings. She knows almost to the month when she's going to hit the number. And in her mind, the number means something specific. It means she's safe. It means she made it. It means the person she used to be, the one who panicked every time the car made a noise, is permanently gone. Daniel hit $500,000 last year. Not through a windfall. Through the same slow, boring, automated process Maya is still inside of. And if you asked him to describe the day he crossed the line, he'd probably be quiet for a second. Then he'd say something like, "It was a Tuesday. I noticed it in the morning. We had leftovers for dinner." Same milestone, two completely different relationships to it. Maya is still living inside the fantasy. Daniel is living inside the reality. And the gap between those two things is the entire subject of this video. So let's start with why the gap exists in the first place. Because it's not random and it's not a personal failure. It's a mechanism. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. There's a concept in psychology called the arrival fallacy. The term was coined by psychologist Tal Ben-Shahar, and it describes something almost everyone has experienced, but very few people have a name for. The arrival fallacy is the illusion that reaching a specific goal will produce a lasting transformation in how you feel. The "I'll be happy when" belief system. I'll feel secure when I hit 500K. I'll feel free when I pay off the mortgage. I'll feel confident when I get the promotion. The research on this is both well documented and genuinely cruel. Because here's what actually happens when you arrive. The emotional spike is real. It shows up. It might last a day, a week, maybe a month if the milestone is significant enough. But then your emotional baseline, the level your brain considers normal, simply resets. It recalibrates around the new reality. And the feeling you thought was on the other side of the goal
quietly moves to the other side of the next one.
This isn't pessimism, it's neuroscience. Your brain is not designed to let you feel permanently satisfied. It's designed to keep you moving. Permanent satisfaction is the evolutionary equivalent of lying down in an open field. Your brain won't allow it. But here's what makes $500,000 specifically strange, because this isn't just any goal. This is a number that genuinely, materially, measurably changes your financial life. And yet it still triggers the arrival fallacy almost perfectly, which means we need to look at both sides of this honestly. What the number actually does, and what it was never going to do, no matter how hard you ran toward it. Let's start with what it actually does, because this part deserves real respect. At $500,000 invested at a 7% average annual return, your portfolio generates roughly $35,000 a year on its own. Let that sit for a second. $35,000 appearing in your account annually, produced by nothing but money you already accumulated. For context, that's more than the full-time minimum wage income in most US states. Your money is now holding down a job. Not a glamorous one, but a real one. It doesn't call in sick, it doesn't ask for a raise, it doesn't need health insurance. It just shows up every single year and does the work. Using the 4% rule, the framework from financial planner Bill Bengen built from decades of market data, $500,000 supports about $20,000 a year in perpetual withdrawals. Meaning, in theory, you could pull $20,000 out of that portfolio every year for 30 or more years and not run out of money. That's not financial independence for most households, but in a life with a paid-off home, that $20,000 a year might actually cover your baseline expenses entirely. And if you're still working and owning, it's a permanent second income quietly running in the background of your financial life without you ever lifting a finger. Here's the version of this that should stop you regardless of where you currently sit on the journey. At $500,000, you are in the top 18% of American households by net worth. The Federal Reserve consistently puts the median American household net worth around $192,000, which means more than half of all families in this country haven't reached the halfway point to the number you're either approaching or have already passed. Let that reframe land. You are not behind. By any objective, data-driven measure, you are ahead of the majority of the country. And yet, almost nobody who hits $500,000 feels that way. Why? This is where we have to talk about something called reference group shift, and it is one of the most quietly destructive forces in the psychology of wealth building. Nobody warns you about it. It doesn't show up in the spreadsheets. It doesn't have a line in the budget. But it operates on your sense of financial reality every single day, and it becomes dramatically more powerful as your net worth grows. Here's how it works. When you have nothing, your comparison group is people with something, and the people with something look like they've won. When you accumulate $100,000, you stop comparing yourself to the person living paycheck to paycheck and start measuring yourself against the person at $500,000. When you hit $500,000, your reference group doesn't stay where it was. It upgrades automatically. The relevant benchmark becomes the couple at $1 million, or the neighbor who seems to have real breathing room, or the guy from college who sold his company and will never have to think about any of this again.
Your net worth grew. Your comparison group grew with it. The gap between where you are and where you feel like you're supposed to be stayed almost exactly the same size. Charles Schwab runs an annual survey asking Americans what net worth makes someone wealthy. The number people give is consistently around $2.5 million. Not $500,000, not $1 million, $2.5 million. And here's the part that should make you genuinely uncomfortable. The people who already have $2.5 million have almost certainly revised that number upward too. The finish line is a projection. It lives in the future by definition. The moment you catch it, it stops being the finish line. This is the second treadmill nobody talks about. Not the hedonic treadmill of spending, where you upgrade your lifestyle and the thrill evaporates within months. The aspirational treadmill of achieving, where you hit the number and the number immediately stops being the number.
You worked for years to step onto a treadmill that moves faster the faster you run. Quick gut check before we go deeper. Pause for a second and honestly picture your own version of the milestone. Not necessarily $500,000. Whatever your current number is. The one where you tell yourself things will feel different. What exactly is different in that version? What fear goes away? What feeling shows up? Get specific. Because what you name right now is going to matter a lot in a few minutes.
Now, here's the uncomfortable truth I promised you at the start. The feeling Maya is chasing, that specific sense of safety, of permanence, of being a person who has finally arrived, that feeling has a source. And the source is not $500,000. The research on money and emotional well-being is cleaner on this than most people realize. What money consistently buys, at every level above genuine scarcity, is not the installation of specific feelings. It's the removal of specific fears. Those two things sound similar. They are not remotely the same. $10,000 removes the fear of a single catastrophic month. $100,000 removes the fear of the emergency you couldn't survive. $500,000 removes the fear of being permanently trapped by a single employer or a single income stream. But the fear of not being enough, the low-frequency background hum of inadequacy that, for a lot of people, gets financially coded, meaning it shows up as anxiety about money, even though its actual address is somewhere else entirely, that fear does not have a financial solution. No amount of net worth gets the package delivered to the wrong door. This is why Daniel had leftovers on his $500,000 Tuesday. Not because the milestone wasn't real, but because Daniel, quietly and without fully realizing it, had already stopped identifying with the person who was afraid. He built the internal architecture of security long before the account balance reflected it. The number confirmed something he'd already started to inhabit. The account was just the receipt.
For Maya, the number is still carrying the full weight of a transformation that has to happen separately, internally, and largely independent of what the portfolio says. And no spreadsheet can do that work for her. Now, here's what makes this actually useful instead of just uncomfortable. Because this is not an argument to stop running toward the number. It's an argument to understand what you're actually running toward. Let me tell you what $500,000 really buys. Not in the fantasy. In the version Daniel actually lives every single week. It buys the exit option. The single most underrated thing a $500,000 net worth quietly places in your hand is the real, unambiguous, non-theoretical ability to leave. Not necessarily the act of leaving, just the knowledge that you could. Your employer knows something about you at this level that most employees never get to demonstrate. The paycheck is no longer the whole story. You can negotiate without desperation behind your eyes. You can push back without the weight of terror underneath the pushback. You can sit in a meeting where someone says something genuinely unreasonable and feel something other than trapped. That is not a small thing. That is a structural reorganization of your entire relationship with work. And it doesn't arrive in a dramatic declaration. It shows up slowly in 100 ordinary moments where you respond differently than you used to. A little calmer, a little less willing to shrink.
It buys compounding momentum you can actually feel. We talk about compound interest in theory endlessly. Most people have heard the snowball metaphor so many times it barely registers anymore. But at $500,000, you stop experiencing compound interest as a concept and start experiencing it as a physical fact of your financial life. In a strong market year, your portfolio can move by more money in 12 months than you personally saved in the previous 3 years combined. The math has genuinely shifted in your favor. The snowball has crested the hill. And the sensation of that, watching the numbers accelerate on their own, is something no projection spreadsheet captures in advance. You have to feel it in real time to understand what it actually means. It buys a quality of silence that most people don't know they're missing until they experience it. There is a low-frequency sound that financial precarity makes inside a person, a background calculation that never fully turns off. What if? What if something breaks? What if I can't cover it?
What if this is the month everything unravels? At $500,000, that noise doesn't disappear, but it gets dramatically, measurably quieter. And the quiet isn't nothing. The quiet is actually the specific thing Maya has been trying to purchase all along. She's just priced it at the wrong number, attached it to the wrong milestone, and built an expectation around it that the number was never designed to deliver. Here's the reframe I want to leave you with, and it's the only one I found that actually holds up under pressure.
The arrival fallacy isn't a reason to stop arriving. It's a reason to stop treating arrival as the only thing that counts. The version of you who accumulates $500,000 is genuinely not the same person who started from zero. The patience you built, the delayed gratification you practiced, the identity of someone who does the quiet, boring, unglamorous thing consistently across years when everyone else is spending, that gets constructed on the way to the number, not at it. Daniel didn't feel transformed on his $500,000 Tuesday because the transformation had already happened, incrementally, over a decade of Sunday evenings where he checked the spreadsheet and added another row and closed the laptop and went back to his life. The account balance was just the receipt for work that had already been done. So if you're sitting below the line right now, running the projection and picturing the moment, I want you to keep picturing it. But picture it accurately. The feeling on the other side isn't the dramatic arrival you've rehearsed in your head at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday when you couldn't sleep. It's quieter than that. It's a meeting where you don't flinch. It's a check engine light that costs you an afternoon instead of a month. It's opening the app and feeling something calm and steady instead of something desperate. That's what $500,000 actually feels like. And if you can want that, the real version, not the projection, you'll spend a lot less time waiting to feel like you've arrived, and a lot more time noticing that you're already becoming the person who gets there. One last thing before you go. Everything I just did in this video, the arrival fallacy, the reference group shift, the Schwab survey, the 4% math reframed as an emotional experience rather than just a calculator output, that's a repeatable process, not a talent. It's the exact thing I teach inside a community I built for people who want to research, write, and grow a faceless YouTube channel in spaces like personal finance. If that's ever crossed your mind, the link is in the description. No pressure at all. It'll be there when you're ready. If this changed how you think about the milestone you're chasing, drop a comment and tell me which number you're currently running toward. I actually read them. And if you want to see the video that maps every major net worth level and what each one actually removes from your life, it's right there on your screen. Go watch that one next. I'll see you in it.